The house is finally quiet. No one is asking you for anything. No emails. No notifications. No expectations. Your shoulders drop. You take a breath that actually reaches your lungs. And then, the doorbell rings. Your body reacts before your thoughts do. Your stomach tightens. Your jaw sets. Your heart speeds up just enough to make you aware of it. And here's the part you don't admit out loud. You don't feel happy. You feel irritated, almost invaded, and immediately after that irritation comes something else. Guilt. Why am I like this? Why can't I just be more welcoming? It's just someone stopping by. But what if it's not just someone stopping by? What if your reaction isn't coldness, but information? What if the tension in your chest isn't rudeness, but a boundary being crossed? Let me ask you something honestly. Have you ever pretended you weren't home even though you were? Have you ever whispered, "Please go away," while standing silently inside your own house? And did you judge yourself for it afterward? Stay with me, because today we're not going to shame this reaction. We're going to dissect it. Psychologically, biologically, emotionally. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 6 psychological truths about women who don't like receiving visitors. Not cliches, not personality labels, but what's actually happening inside your brain, your nervous system, and your emotional conditioning. And one of these truths might completely change how you see yourself, especially if you've spent years believing you were just difficult. If you're new here, this channel is about understanding the emotional architecture behind the reactions you've been judging for years. So subscribe if you're ready to stop pathologizing yourself. Before we go deeper, tell me something in the comments. Do you dislike visitors more when you're tired, or all the time? There's a difference, and that difference matters. And start understanding yourself. Now let's begin with the part nobody explains. Because this reaction, it's not random, and it's not weakness. It's your nervous system doing something very specific. Let's clarify something. What most people call not liking visitors is rarely about people. It's about interruption. More specifically, interruption without consent. You weren't doing nothing. You were shifting from being needed to being off duty. When you finally sit down and think, I can relax, your brain begins to recalibrate. Cortisol lowers. Your muscles soften. Your limbic system quiets. You are processing the day. Then knock. Instant shift. Your brain registers a prediction error. Something changed. Update required. And updates cost energy. Let me ask you something simple. When the doorbell rings unexpectedly, do you feel your body tense before you even think? That's not personality. That's neurochemistry. A small spike in cortisol. A surge of alertness. A rapid transition from inward to outward. If you've been managing people all day, that shift feels heavier than it should, because you were finally off stage. And here's the deeper layer. For many women, home isn't just a place. It's the only environment where they don't perform. At work, you perform competence. With family, stability. In relationships, availability. At home alone, the mask drops. So when someone appears without warning, you have to assemble that mask again. Smile. Engage. Host. Even if you care about them. Now consider this. Do you feel more drained by unplanned hosting than by social events you actually chose? That detail matters. Because what your nervous system is reacting to isn't the person. It's the loss of choice. Choice regulates the prefrontal cortex. Choice stabilizes emotion. No choice. Stress response. And if you've spent years being adaptable and accommodating, your brain builds strong pathways around adjustment. You're good at adjusting, but being good at it doesn't mean it's free. So here's the quiet question before we move on. When was the last time you said, "This isn't a good time," without over-explaining? If that feels uncomfortable, stay. Because truth number 1 is where most women realize they've misunderstood themselves, and it has nothing to do with being antisocial. Truth number 1, you're not antisocial. You're protecting recovery time. Let's start here, because this is where most women get it wrong about themselves. Truth number 1, you are not antisocial. You are not cold. You are not unfriendly. You are protecting recovery time. And recovery is not a luxury. It's biological. If you're a woman between 35 and 55, chances are your day looks something like this. You manage. You respond. You anticipate. You regulate. You solve. You may not even notice how many micro-decisions you make before noon. And every micro-decision costs something. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for planning, inhibition, emotional control, works constantly. When you're finally alone, your brain shifts into a different mode. Processing, integrating, resetting. This is when serotonin stabilizes mood, when stress hormones drop, when neural pathways that were overactive begin to calm. And then someone knocks, and in 3 seconds, you have to switch states. From inward to outward, from processing to presenting, from decompression to hosting. Let me ask you something directly. Do you feel like you are always on for other people? And does being alone feel like the only time you're not performing? That's not introversion. That's fatigue. Now here's something important. Women who dislike unexpected visits are often the same women who carry emotional labor in relationships, are reliable, are the strong one, rarely get taken care of. So when someone shows up unannounced, it's not just a knock, it's an unplanned demand. And if you've spent years being the emotionally available one, that demand feels heavier than it should. Pattern interrupt. If a man says he needs space, it's independence. If a woman says she needs space, it's attitude. Have you noticed that? That double standard shapes guilt, and guilt changes behavior. Many women override their own nervous system signals because they were taught good women are welcoming. But welcoming at the cost of self-regulation creates resentment. And resentment, over time, creates emotional distance. Now let's confront something deeper. If someone shows up unexpectedly and you feel irritated, what story do you tell yourself? I'm selfish. I'm too sensitive. I'm rigid. Or do you ever say, I was finally resting? Because resting is recovery, and recovery protects your neurochemistry. Without recovery, cortisol accumulates. Without recovery, executive function declines. Without recovery, patience shrinks. So here's the reframe. You don't dislike visitors. You dislike losing recovery time without warning. And that distinction matters, because one is personality, the other is nervous system preservation. Now let's close a subtle loop from earlier. Remember when I asked whether you dislike visitors more when you're tired or all the time? If the reaction is stronger when you're depleted, that's not personality, that's exhaustion. And exhaustion magnifies boundary sensitivity. Now we go deeper. Because truth number 2 is not about fatigue. It's about control. And control is a word most women have been trained to be ashamed of. But what if your need for control is actually about safety? Stay with me, because this one changes how you see your anger. Truth number 2, your need for control is about safety, not rigidity. Let's talk about a word that makes a lot of women uncomfortable. Control. Most women don't want to admit they care about control. Because culturally, control in women is labeled as difficult, high maintenance, rigid, unpleasant. But psychologically, control equals safety. Your brain is a prediction machine. Its primary job is not happiness. It's not connection. It's not even success. Its primary job is survival. And survival depends on reducing uncertainty. When you control your schedule, your environment, and your space, your limbic system calms down. When something unpredictable happens, your brain registers a spike in uncertainty, and uncertainty triggers vigilance. Now here's the question. When someone arrives unannounced, do you feel startled or invaded? Those are different. Startled passes quickly. Invaded lingers. Because invasion implies loss of control. And for many women, especially those who have experienced emotional unpredictability in childhood, unstable relationships, high responsibility roles, chronic caretaking, control became a stabilizing mechanism, not obsession, regulation. And when you finally build a life where your home feels predictable, an unexpected visitor disrupts that system. Your prefrontal cortex has to rapidly reorganize, and that rapid reorganization costs energy. Now here's something most women won't say out loud. It's not the visit that bothers you. It's the fact that someone decided your time without asking you. That's autonomy disruption. And autonomy is deeply tied to psychological safety. Let me ask you something that might sting a little. Were you raised to believe that saying no makes you ungrateful? If yes, then your anger isn't just about the doorbell. It's about a lifetime of being expected to accommodate. Pattern interrupt. You are allowed to value predictability. You are allowed to want notice. You are allowed to decide when you are socially available. Now let's bring in biology again. When autonomy is preserved, serotonin stabilizes mood. When autonomy is repeatedly compromised, stress chemistry rises. Over time, your brain can become more sensitive to boundary violations. That's not weakness. That's conditioning. And here's the twist. Many women who dislike surprise visits are actually highly competent, high-functioning, emotionally reliable women. They manage chaos all day. They don't want chaos in their living room. Does that resonate? Now I'm going to gently escalate this. If you feel irritated when someone shows up without warning, what part of you feels disrespected? Your time, your energy, your preparation, your authority over your own space. That's the key. Because underneath irritation is usually a boundary, and underneath that boundary is a value. Now we're ready for truth number 3. And this one might surprise you. Because women who dislike visitors are often the most empathic women in the room. Which sounds contradictory, but it's not. Stay with me. Truth number 3. High empathy makes social access expensive. Now we get to something most people completely misunderstand. Many women who dislike unexpected visitors are not cold. They're highly empathic, and empathy has a cost. Let's break this down. Some women walk into a room and immediately sense the emotional temperature. They notice subtle tension. They read micro-expressions. They adjust tone instinctively. They anticipate needs before they're spoken. Sound familiar? That's not coincidence. That's neural wiring reinforced over years. Your brain builds neural pathways around what you practice. If you spent decades managing emotional climates, in relationships, workplaces, families, your brain became very efficient at scanning and adjusting. That's neuroplasticity in action. But here's the hidden consequence. If you're highly attuned to others, every unexpected interaction requires rapid emotional recalibration. When someone enters your space unannounced, you don't just see them. You absorb them. Their mood, their stress, their expectations, their energy. Your limbic system activates not because you dislike them, but because you immediately begin processing them. And processing people takes cognitive bandwidth. Now let me ask you something direct. When someone visits, do you automatically start thinking about their comfort? Do you wonder if they're bored? If they need something? If the house feels welcoming enough? That's emotional labor. And emotional labor is invisible, but it's metabolically real. Your prefrontal cortex engages to monitor yourself. Your mirror neuron systems activate to read them. Your stress system rises slightly to maintain performance. You may look calm, but internally, you're multitasking. And if you've already spent the day giving, that extra demand feels disproportionate. Pattern interrupt. The problem isn't that you don't like people. The problem is that you're very good at caring. And being very good at caring makes spontaneous access expensive. Now let's confront something subtle. Have you ever noticed that after hosting, even briefly, you need time alone to recalibrate? That's not moodiness. That's nervous system recovery. Oxytocin can increase during warm interactions. But so can cortisol if you're monitoring yourself. That dual activation is draining. And here's something many women quietly admit. They enjoy planned gatherings. They enjoy chosen social time. But they resent surprise access. Because choice changes everything. Choice lowers stress. Choice preserves autonomy. Now I want you to think about something uncomfortable. Were you ever praised for being easy, flexible, or low maintenance? Sometimes those compliments train us to override our signals. And when we override signals repeatedly, we disconnect from our own boundaries. Over time, that disconnection creates irritation. Not because you're mean, but because your system is tired of being bypassed. Now here's where it gets deeper. Empathic women often feel guilty for needing solitude, because they equate caring with availability. But caring and access are not the same thing. And if that sentence hits you, stay with me. Because truth number 4 is where we talk about irritation. And this one will either make you uncomfortable or set you free. Truth number 4. Irritation is a boundary signal, not a character flaw. Let's talk about the feeling most women judge themselves for. Irritation. Not rage. Not hostility. Just that sharp internal tightening when someone appears without warning. You open the door. You smile. You say, "Hey, come in." But inside, something contracts. And later you replay it. Why did that bother me so much? Why can't I just relax? Why do I always feel tense? Here's the truth. Irritation is not cruelty. It's information. Your nervous system doesn't send irritation randomly. It sends irritation when a boundary has been crossed faster than your mind could process it. And here's what makes it confusing. Your prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain, says, "This is normal. Be kind." But your limbic system says, "This was unplanned. I wasn't ready." That mismatch creates friction. And friction feels like irritability. Let me ask you something directly. When you feel irritated by a surprise visit, do you immediately try to suppress it? Do you tell yourself, "Stop being dramatic. It's not a big deal"? Other women wouldn't react like this. That internal invalidation is where resentment begins. Because every time you dismiss your own signal, you strengthen a cognitive behavioral pattern of self-abandonment. Your brain learns, my discomfort is less important than social harmony. Over time, that pattern wires itself deeper. Neural pathways strengthen around compliance, and irritation becomes more frequent, not less. Because your nervous system is fighting to be heard. Now let's bring in dopamine for a moment. When you anticipate a quiet evening, your brain begins releasing dopamine tied to reward expectation. Relief is coming. Stillness is coming. Privacy is coming. When that expectation is interrupted, your brain experiences a reward violation. And reward violations amplify emotional response. You're not just reacting to the person. You're reacting to the loss of anticipated peace. Pattern interrupt. Sometimes you're not angry at the visitor. You're grieving the evening you thought you were going to have. Sit with that. Now here's a harder question. Do you feel more irritated when someone assumes access than when they ask for access? That difference is autonomy. Autonomy regulates serotonin and emotional stability. Lack of autonomy destabilizes mood. And when autonomy is repeatedly compromised, your system becomes hyper-alert to intrusion. That's not being too sensitive. That's adaptive conditioning. Now let's go deeper. Many women were taught that irritation equals selfishness. But psychologically, irritation often marks the edge of self-respect. If you never allow yourself to feel irritation, you also never identify your limits. And if you never identify your limits, you live in quiet resentment, which slowly erodes connection. So here's the reframe. Irritation is a messenger. It's asking, was this aligned with what you wanted? If the answer is no, the feeling makes sense. And feelings that make sense don't need to be shamed. They need to be understood. Now we're ready for truth number 5. And this one is uncomfortable. Because it challenges something you might be proud of. Your ability to control your environment. And control has a shadow side. Stay with me. Truth number 5, the control paradox. When protection becomes constriction. Up until now, everything might have felt validating. You're protecting recovery. You value autonomy. You're empathic. Your irritation is information. All true. But here's the uncomfortable layer. Control reduces stress. But too much control reduces resilience. And resilience matters. Let's look at what happens over time. If you consistently eliminate surprise from your life, if you screen every call, avoid ambiguous plans, decline spontaneous invitations, your nervous system becomes highly adapted to predictability. That feels peaceful until something unpredictable happens. Then the reaction feels stronger than it used to, because the brain calibrates itself based on exposure. This is neuroplasticity again. The more you avoid uncertainty, the less tolerance you build for it. And here's the paradox. The neural circuitry that processes unpleasant surprise is very similar to the circuitry that processes pleasant surprise. Both are prediction errors. Both require rapid cognitive shifting. Both activate alert systems before interpretation. So if you train your brain to label all unpredictability as threat, you may also dull your capacity for spontaneity. Let me ask you something honestly. Has your peace ever started to feel rigid, safe but smaller, calm but narrow? That's the paradox of over-control. You minimize cortisol spikes, but you may also minimize novelty. And novelty stimulates dopamine. Dopamine fuels curiosity, engagement, vitality. Without some unpredictability, life becomes stable but flat. Now, this does not mean you should tolerate boundary violations. It means the goal isn't total elimination of surprise. The goal is conscious choice. Choice restores power. Choice regulates the prefrontal cortex. Choice lowers threat perception. Pattern interrupt. Boundaries are doors with locks. Walls have no doors. Which one are you building? If every unexpected knock feels catastrophic, it may not just be about exhaustion. It may be about accumulated avoidance. And here's the critical distinction. There is a difference between saying, "I don't want visitors tonight," and building a life where no one feels welcome at all. One is self-respect. The other is self-protection turned isolation. Now pause and reflect. Are you protecting your energy or protecting yourself from being needed? Those are not always the same. If that question made you uncomfortable, good. Growth lives in discomfort. Because here's what we're moving toward. Not tolerance, not rigidity, integration. And that brings us to truth number 6. This is where everything shifts. Because the real skill is not becoming someone who loves surprise visits. The real skill is learning how to communicate boundaries without guilt, without hostility, and without isolating yourself. This is the part most women were never taught. Stay with me. Truth number 6. The real skill is not tolerance. It's boundary communication without guilt. Here's the final truth. You don't need to become someone who loves unexpected visitors. And you don't need to eliminate unpredictability from your life. What you need is this. The ability to communicate boundaries without self-abandonment. Because here's what actually drains you. It's not the visit. It's saying yes when your body is saying no. It's smiling when you feel tense. It's hosting when you feel depleted. And then judging yourself for feeling resentful afterward. That cycle is the real exhaustion. Let's break something gently but clearly. Guilt is not always a moral signal. Sometimes guilt is a withdrawal symptom from people-pleasing. If you've spent years being accommodating, your nervous system associates conflict with danger. So when you imagine saying, "Please text me before coming over," your body tightens. Not because it's wrong, but because it's unfamiliar. And unfamiliar activates the limbic system. That doesn't mean it's unsafe. It means it's new. This is where neuroplasticity works in your favor. Each time you set a boundary and survive it, you build new neural pathways. Each time you express a need calmly and nothing catastrophic happens, your brain recalibrates. Your stress response decreases over time. Your serotonin stabilizes. Your self-trust increases. Now let's make this practical. Here are grounded, adult, emotionally mature scripts. If it's someone you care about, "I really value seeing you. I just do better when we plan ahead. Can you text me first next time?" If someone shows up unexpectedly, "Today isn't a good time. Let's plan something soon." No apology essay. No over-explaining. No justification of your nervous system. Now pause. What happens inside you when you imagine saying that? Do you feel relief or anxiety? That reaction tells you where your growth edge is. Now here's something powerful. When boundaries are communicated clearly and respectfully, oxytocin, the bonding hormone, actually increases in healthy relationships. Because clarity builds safety, and safety builds intimacy. You are not pushing people away. You are teaching them how to access you. There's a difference. Pattern interrupt. If someone can only love you when you're available on demand, that's not intimacy. That's entitlement. Now let's integrate everything. You are not antisocial. You are protecting recovery. You value autonomy. You are likely empathic. Your irritation is information. And control, when conscious, becomes discernment, not rigidity. So here's the final reflection. When someone knocks unexpectedly, what do you want to choose next time? Automatic compliance or conscious response? Because that's the real shift. From reaction to regulation, from guilt to clarity, from resentment to choice. And I want to leave you with this question. What would change in your life if you stopped apologizing for needing peace? Not defensively, not aggressively, just calmly. Because needing peace does not make you cold. It makes you aware. If this video resonated with you, subscribe. This channel is about understanding the emotional architecture behind your reactions, so you stop mislabeling yourself. And in the comments, tell me, which truth felt the most confronting? 1 through 6. Your answer might help another woman feel seen. I'll see you in the next one. And remember, your home is not a stage. It's a sanctuary, and you are allowed to decide who enters it.